Welcome to Workplace Harassment Prevention Training for Employees. Harassment in any form is unacceptable in the workplace. In this training, we will explore both sexual and non-sexual harassment to ensure our environment remains safe, respectful, and inclusive for all. Some key concepts we'll be going over is what is harassment, what's the definition, why is it important to prevent harassment in our workplace, and what are your responsibilities in preventing harassment. So what is harassment? Non-sexual harassment encompasses behaviors that are hostile, intimidating, or abusive, but not of a sexual nature. This includes these three things on the slide: bullying, discrimination, and verbal abuse. Bullying is defined as repeated mistreatment through mocking, belittling, or undermining someone's work or ideas. Discrimination is treating someone unfairly based on their race, gender, religion, age, disability, or other protected characteristics. And verbal abuse includes yelling, using derogatory language, or making threats that can create a toxic work environment. All of these forms of harassment create harmful work conditions, impacting morale, productivity, and well-being. Non-sexual harassment is just as damaging as sexual harassment and should be taken seriously, as it can lead to long-term emotional and psychological distress for the targeted individual. So what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment can take many forms, from inappropriate comments to quid pro quo situations, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's all about power and control, not just sexual attraction. So the key message here is that harassment is not limited to sexual advances. Any behavior that demeans or isolates a person contributes to a hostile work environment and is equally unacceptable. Power imbalances in the workplace often occur when one person holds more authority, influence, or control over another. This could be a manager with direct power over an employee's job, a senior colleague with more experience, or even a coworker with informal influence over the office culture. Oftentimes, power imbalances lead to harassment. When one person holds significant power over another, such as a supervisor over an employee, the person with less power may feel unable to speak up against the unwanted behavior. They might fear retaliation, job loss, or negative career impacts if they report or resist the behavior. Someone in a position of power might use their authority to coerce or pressure a subordinate into uncomfortable situations. This can involve unwanted advances, inappropriate comments, or requests for personal favors in exchange for job benefits or protections. Because of the power imbalance, the employee may feel obligated to comply even if they don't want to. Harassment isn't limited to direct supervisors. Power can also come from social dynamics, just such as someone who is well connected or well respected within the organization. Employees may feel intimidated or powerless to resist harassment from someone they view as influential, even if that person doesn't have direct authority over them. Some examples of power imbalances would be a manager that makes sexual advances towards an employee knowing the employee fears losing their job. A senior colleague who belittles a junior employee's ideas in meetings, creating a hostile work environment, or a team leader who pressures a subordinate into socializing outside of work in exchange for favorable treatment at work. So let's jump into the two different types of sexual harassment. We have quid pro quo, which in Latin means this for that, or something for something, an exchange. And then there's hostile work environment. So what is quid pro quo? It's tangible employment action against the victim, and it involves monetary loss or a change in job. An example would be Yvette receiving a smaller performance-based pay increase than other employees with similar performance because she refused to go on a date with her supervisor, Marcus. Power dynamics, again, play a crucial role in workplace relationships and can significantly influence behavior, particularly when it comes to harassment. Power imbalances often exist in professional settings, whether due to hierarchical positions, tenure, or even access to certain resources and opportunities. As I mentioned before, when one person holds more power, there's a greater risk that they might misuse this power intentionally or even unintentionally. This imbalance can create situations where the less powerful individual feels pressured to tolerate inappropriate behavior or is less likely to speak up if they feel uncomfortable or harassed. Hostile work environment is speech or conduct that is severe and/or pervasive enough to create an abusive or hostile work environment. In addition to speech and/or conduct, hostile work environment covers explicit or suggestive items that are emailed, texted, electronically provided or displayed in the workplace that interfere with job performance or that create an abusive or hostile work environment. Now let's break that down a little bit. A hostile work environment doesn't just arise from a one-time incident unless that incident is extremely severe. Instead, it often results from ongoing behavior that creates a pattern of mistreatment. This could include things like offensive jokes or comments, derogatory remarks or slurs. Language is intended to demean or belittle somebody, particularly if it targets their identity. That's what I mean by targeted remarks or slurs. Physical threats or intimidation, actions that may make someone feel physically unsafe or threatened. Unwanted physical conduct, exclusion or isolation. Now, the impact of a hostile work environment can be profound. It can lead to stress, anxiety, and a significant drop in morale and productivity across the whole team. Employees working in such environments may dread coming to work, leading to increased absenteeism and even turnover. The emotional toll can also affect their personal lives, leading to a broader health and well-being issues. For example, imagine a situation where an employee is consistently subjected to sexist remarks by their colleagues. Over time, this employee may start to feel isolated, unwelcomed, and unmotivated. They might even start looking for another job just to escape the toxic environment. This not only impacts the individual, but also the team's overall performance and the company's reputation. In a little bit more detail into sexual harassment, who can commit sexual harassment? As we discussed, employees at all levels, customers or vendors, even members of the same sex or opposite sex. So again, it covers everybody. Who can be a victim? Individuals or individuals targeted by statements or actions. So either a person that you're directing it to or even someone just overhearing it. Bystanders or witnesses that are not directly targeted. So really, who can commit sexual harassment and who can be a victim of sexual harassment pretty much comes down to anybody at the company or within the company's four walls. So how do we recognize harassment? It's not always easy because there's subtle harassment and there's overt harassment. The overt harassment is what's easier to find. Subtle harassment can be things like excluding somebody from meetings or derogatory jokes, not necessarily pointed at anybody individually. So recognizing subtle versus overt is key. We want to make sure that us as bystanders, that we encourage each other to be vigilant and proactive in identifying and addressing harassment, even if we're not directly involved. And we need to understand that cultural norms can influence what's considered harassment. It's essential to be aware of and respect diverse perspectives. What's good for the goose isn't always what's good for the gander. So you may be asking yourself, why is it important to prevent harassment in our workplace? It's simple. All forms of harassment harm us all, not just the intended victim or unintended victim. The most important part of our corporate values is to ensure all employees are treated with respect and dignity. Engaging in, condoning, or not reporting harassment is in direct conflict with our values. We want to remain in compliance with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination, including sexual orientation and gender identity or expression. Harassment can lead to serious legal consequences, including lawsuits and fines, as well as disciplinary actions within the company. And finally, the emotional and psychological toll on victims can be severe, leading to anxiety, depression, and even career setbacks. So let's talk about a few prevention strategies. We want to make sure that we're promoting respect. Preventing harassment starts with a culture of respect. Every interaction should reflect our commitment to professionalism and inclusivity. Encourage reporting. Employees should feel safe to report harassment without fear of retaliation. We must support and protect those who speak up. And the leadership role. And I cannot stress enough the importance of leading and modeling appropriate behavior and creating an environment where harassment is not tolerated. It absolutely starts at the top. So your responsibilities when it comes to preventing harassment include promoting a culture of respect and inclusion. Everyone should feel valued and respected regardless of their background or position. We want to make sure that we're encouraging open communication. Employees should feel safe to speak up about any concerns without fear of retaliation. We want to make sure that we're taking complaints seriously, because when someone reports a behavior that could be considered sexual harassment or contribute to a hostile work environment, it's crucial to investigate promptly and thoroughly. Even if the complaint doesn't meet the legal standard for a hostile work environment, it's still important to address the underlying issues. And then support. We want to make sure that we are supporting the victims. In summary, any form of harassment that affects an individual's employment, unreasonably interferes with his or her work performance, or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment is simply unacceptable.